Okay. So, hello and welcome everybody to the Buddhist Recovery Network Academy. I'm Susanna, joining you from Helsinki, Finland, and I will be your host today. I'm a big fan of Buddhism, recovery, and Buddhist recovery, and Kevin Griffin as well. I facilitate both 8-step recovery meetings and mindfulness-based addiction recovery courses here in Finland, and I'm a member of the board of the Buddhist Recovery Network, so that's why I'm here as a host. And today we have a new academy teaching offered by Kevin Griffin. The pronouns are he and him, and the topic of the teaching is deepening attunement to body, feelings, and mind. And I will tell you a little bit more about Kevin and the teaching in just a moment. But I want to thank you again for being here and being part of our community today. All of our teachings are given freely, and we are blessed with some amazing teachers like Kevin here tonight, who have experience on the cushion, experience working with body, speech, and mind, experience in the ongoing practice of recovery by the way of Dharma. As we practice the Buddha's teaching of generosity, we invite you to give dana that we will be given to support our ongoing Buddhist Recovery Network meetings and to support the teacher. You can give on one-time or recurring basis using the link that Vince, our tech host tonight, thank you, Vince, for doing the tech. Vince has posted it to the chat field. And please be sure to indicate your donation is for the Academy. And we sincerely thank you for your generosity. And in case you miss, you don't put there that it's for the Academy, all the donations that come right before this session and during and after, we will direct them to the Academy. So no worries about that. So then let's go to the main thing for tonight. I'd like to introduce our guest teacher returning. I wonder how many times, but yeah, our regular teacher. So Kevin Griffin is a Buddhist teacher and author in the Theravada tradition. He's a co-founder of the Buddhist Recovery Network and teaches internationally across Buddhist traditions. He has been a Buddhist practitioner and in recovery for over 3 decades. And the topic of the teaching for today is deepening attunement to body, feelings, and mind. In this talk, we will explore how recovery and mindfulness can make us more sensitive internally and externally. Such increasing awareness allows us to let go on profound levels and wake up to our inherent wisdom and wholeness. Looking forward to giving this talk and having a little chat with me beforehand. Now I read something in the mail, but Kevin has been looking forward to this. So yes, welcome, Kevin. It's a pleasure to have you back again. So the screen is yours.
Thanks,
and we will
Susanna.
spotlight you.
It's nice to see you and hear you. So we're going to start with a sit, right? And we'll do I guess we just have an hour for this, so we'll have to meditate quickly. So, settling into a comfortable posture. You can close your eyes or just lower your gaze, stepping out of the visual world. And bringing the body into stillness. Feeling the body breathing. And just acknowledging where you are right now, how you feel. That word to feel has multiple meanings in English. It can refer to physical sensations, can refer to emotions. In Buddhist teachings, it refers to another Experience just the pleasant or unpleasant or neutral quality of anything you're experiencing in mind or body. So the question, how do you feel? What answer comes to mind right away? Is it one about your body or about your emotions or mind state? Or do you feel all of that together? Is it blending? We use the breath as a focal point that is useful both as a concentration object and as a conditioner, something that helps the body to grow more calm, to settle, helps the mind to quiet. The breath is always moving, breathing in, breathing out. So too are the mind and the sensations, the feelings. Nothing static, nothing stable. To meditate is to see this, to watch this, to watch the movements of mind and body, even as we seemingly work against that inevitability of movement by trying to calm the mind, calm the body, to sit still, quiet the thoughts. Even as things begin to settle a bit, we can sense the continuing energy of experience, body and mind, heart. We may find the attention gathering around the breath, and then a moment later it's gone, off on another stream of thinking. So we gently come back. All right, just a short sit to get us settled a bit. So just to first say thank you to Susanna and Vince for running this event and A lot of gratitude I have for people who have kept the Buddhist Recovery Network growing and becoming really, I think, an important part of the recovery world and the Buddhist recovery world. And I think we can also thank Vimala Sara, if you guys know her, for her energy over the years. I helped to co-found Buddhist Recovery Network, but I'm not really much of a organization person, and so really didn't do much more than show up for a couple of meetings. So this talk, it's always an odd thing for me to decide what I'm going to talk about days or weeks in advance of a class or a session, because I tend to kind of speak out of my present moment experience. But this talk's title and description are fortunately very specific. So, and they certainly are kind of universal in their application and their importance. So I will say the title again, Deepening Attunement to Body, Feelings, and Mind. And that is really a description of mindfulness meditation. And it is actually meant to point to the first three of the four foundations of mindfulness. The fourth one is more about seeing the big picture, the insights that come out of that deepening attunement. And I think of this attunement as very much in parallel with the process of recovery, because what I think the first, maybe critical part of it is the attunement to our own suffering. That is really the motivation for giving up addictive behavior. And when we are active in our addiction, we are really, I don't know what the opposite of attuned is, but I'll just say detuned. We are really out of touch. We don't feel very much, and we don't want to feel very much, right? That's kind of the essence of it, which is in many ways the great hurdle to get over, to come into recovery, is the willingness to feel, the even the capacity to allow ourselves to feel things. And an early recovery is very much a struggle with this for many people, is and probably one of the main reasons so many people relapse in early recovery, that they start to feel, and we don't know how to, I'll say we don't know how to do that, how to live with that. Again, this is like what our addiction was so much about, was not being able to live with the feelings we had. And of course there are other reasons for addiction, but for me that seems like the underlying element of it, that there's things that I just can't deal with experiencing, and I want to control how I feel and feel differently. And so we see, as people come into recovery, that when they do get over those first hurdles of of stopping their addictive behavior, and then therefore feeling more, what typically happens is we start to see other behaviors that are also causing us suffering, that we weren't attuned enough to know that they were happening, because the addictive behavior was suppressing that experience enough that we didn't. If you're an alcoholic, you don't really notice your diet that much if you're drunk all the time, if you're on heroin, you're not really like dealing with your relationships very well. So it's not really like, okay, I got more important things to do than worry about people. I got to get loaded. So, we get clean and sober, or whatever the addictive behavior is. We let go of that. And then the next levels of experience start to appear, and this sort of the peeling the onion kind of, which is actually not an expression I quite understand anyway, but something about this, like the layers, right, of of uh, of experience, and layers of feeling, and layers of behavior, so that things like diet and exercise and relationships and being responsible and being a kind person and a generous person and all these things that really we didn't have time for, just didn't even fit into our lives, start to take on more importance for us. And I would argue that, not that I want to argue about it, but in the more, academic sense, I would argue that what's going on in that process is that we are becoming sensitive to suffering on on deeper and deeper and more subtle levels. Now, there's other ways to view this, but this is kind of, my doorway into insight, and my doorway into letting go, which is attuning to suffering and letting go. And so with mindfulness meditation, we are going through a very specific process that exposes us to these different layers of feeling, of experiencing life. So we start with the breath, we start with the body. And, in the traditional model that the Buddha teaches, we just try to be aware of the breath, and then more wholly be aware of the body. And through that, it's interesting the way there's teachings around mindfulness of breath suggest, be aware of the breath, then be aware of the breath with the whole body. And then with the breath, let the body calm. And I don't necessarily think that means that you have to kind of try to make the body become more calm by being mindful of the breath, but rather that if you are mindful of the breath for a sustained period, and this doesn't have to be continuous, but that we repeatedly come back to the breath, that there is a natural calming that arises. So this process the Buddha discovered and taught is not some kind of system that he imposes onto our mind and body, but rather one that he discovered actually is how the mind and body operates. So that rather than the meditation instructions being a prescription for what to do, it's more a description of what happens if we bring this kind of gentle awareness to the breath and to the body, that there's a natural calming that starts to happen. But it's quite interesting, and something that is really evident for me is that this awareness an attunement to the body and the breath doesn't sort of happen in a vacuum, that right along with that attuning to the body comes attuning to feeling, because they're inextricably related. They're intertwined. They're conditioned. The body conditions the feelings condition the body. This is all related. So when you start to pay attention to the breath, very often what happens is energetically some other feelings are intruding into your awareness, and we can try to suppress them, which sounds a lot like addictive behavior to me, or we can open to them, which is the second of the 4 foundations of mindfulness. We open to feeling, and we let feeling come through, and we start to attune to feeling. So what's happening in this process is a more and more subtle attunement. That is, the body is the grossest form of our human experience. Just it's this semi-solid thing. It's an object. It's got bones and blood and all this stuff. Feeling is more subtle than that, right? And so just as with recovery, the first thing we address is the grossest form of addiction, and then start to attune to more subtle underlying tendencies. So too with the meditative experience, we start with the grossest thing, body, and then start to attune to more subtle aspects of experience. So now we're tuning into feeling, and we're faced with how to deal with that. Fortunately, the breath itself has a healing quality, so that when we are using the breath as a partner in this process, it accompanies us through this, so that as we face these feelings, the natural tendency with feelings is to run off with a story, or run off into some effort at control, suppression, or if it's a pleasant feeling, expansion. When we use the breath as an object of awareness, as a grounding object, it first of all helps to keep us here, so that the running off, we keep bringing it back as the mind starts to try to run off. We bring it back. And it has this healing quality that allows us to breathe with feeling. So breathing with feeling is just a central element of learning to hold and not be overwhelmed with the feelings that arise as we become more subtly attuned to our experience. If you're loaded all the time and you don't feel any of this stuff, it makes life simpler, in that regard. All the rest of your life might be a mess, but the feeling part, you don't really have to deal with it, because it's just like there's a wall there. The door has been closed. As it opens up, okay, how do I work with this? So this attuning means that I can meet this experience with a new attitude. Instead of saying, I have to get away from this, I say, I bring curiosity. What is this? What is this feeling? One of the key elements of this process, because unpleasant feelings, the things that we've lived with, whether it's through trauma or depression, anxiety, anger, fear, these things are like monsters in our mind, and because we've never really encountered them and felt them deeply, they retain this kind of mythic role in our minds, that they are dangerous, that they are unmanageable, that they will kill us. Of course, we want to run away from that. But as we grow, as we develop equanimity, stability of mind, stability of heart, openness of heart, we start to take a little peek. We like open the door a little bit. What's that? What is that thing in there? What is that monster, under the bed, in the closet, right? Maybe I can flash a light on it, maybe I can take a look. Maybe I can try breathing with it a little bit. And we bring this into the light and we start to experience, oh, this is uncomfortable. This is unpleasant. But this is just pain, or this is just energy even. This is just discomfort. I've been through all kinds of discomfort. I got sober, I've been through hell. Maybe I can change my relationship to this experience and learn to, and so we start to breathe with, allow it in. And just by changing our relationship, so much of the power of those destructive feelings is undermined. So much of it is just washed away. And yeah, it's still difficult. Life is, first noble truth, it's difficult. Feelings are often unpleasant. There are lots of pleasant ones, but, I'm not here to talk about those, that, but they're not monsters, right? They won't kill us. We can learn to befriend them. We can learn from them, because oftentimes they're telling us something useful if we listen to the truth of them rather than the story we have. Oh, this feeling might be telling me that I'm not taking care of myself, or it might be telling me that I need to connect with people, or, it'd probably be a good idea to get outside, take a walk, some just simple things, not, groundbreaking ideas, but just self-care very often. And so there's this attunement. Getting back to the structure of this talk, such as it is. Body, feeling. This third aspect, mind, opens up another element of our experience and continues in this process of changing relationship to. And this is such a key idea. Our relationship to our addiction was gotta have it. And when we broke that, if you stop drinking and using, it just became, oh, that's a thing that I don't have to do. And I don't have to believe that story. That I broke up with them, that relationship is different now. So our typical relationship to our body, our feelings, and our mind is, it's me, right? So when we start to attune now to the level of mind, which, is a pretty vague term. In Buddhism, this is citta, C-I-T-T-A. The C is pronounced like a CH in English. So often people translate this as heart mind. It's also referring to awareness itself. And this is where I think it might be most helpful in the context of what I'm talking about, is that we're aware of the body. As the body becomes more calm, we become attuned to the subtle experience of feeling in the body. And as we become aware of mind, we start to see that all of this experience is only being known in the mind or in awareness. And that in itself is a shift in awareness. in a shift of experience, because now, instead of it being me, it's just awareness. And then as we attune further to awareness, to mind, we see that these experiences of body and feeling are not actually the mind. They are experienced in mind, but awareness itself is something else. It is impersonal. There is no identity tied up with it. And just through touching this, even in brief moments, having a sense of this, then has a great impact on how we understand our experience. This is, the process of insight operates on the felt level, but it also operates on the it's not the intellectual level exactly, it's the perceptual level, how we understand things. And so when we make a shift into seeing experience as happening within the space of awareness, within consciousness, it necessarily means that it's not an I. There's a disidentification that naturally happens through this. And through that disidentification, there is the letting go. The suffering kind of naturally falls away, because suffering is virtually always tied to identity, to self. So this perceptual shift, how we understand what's happening, then changes how we experience it. So this is what I've come to call interconditionality, if you will. Just what we need, another complicated word. It's very similar to well, it's called interdependence, which is a more traditional term. But what I mean is that these three things, and there are others in the world, but these three elements of experience, body, feelings, and mind, all condition each other. Our body, the sensations in the body and the breath condition the way we feel. The way we feel conditions the way our body feels, the sense experience of the body. The feelings also condition mind, awareness, and the thought world. The mind world, the world of thought and images in the mind, conditions feelings and condition body, and body condition. So they're interconditional, right? They're all intertwined with each other. As we see this, again, there is less identification, because we see that the way of viewing self, the way self is understood, is that there is a thing, a center from which everything happens, out of which comes everything that we call me, that we call identity. When we see that there, rather than a center, there is just a continual interaction among different aspects of experience, we see that there is no center to point to. Thus, the idea of self gets diffused, shall we say, and this perception, then we start to see things as just as the Buddha describes, as we hear from so many Dharma teachers, things appearing and things disappearing, just moment by moment, flows of energy, flows of experience, no self, no I in there experiencing this, no story to be made out of this. So this is the process that I'm pointing at with this idea of deepening attunement, that we begin by attuning to the body and calming the body. We then develop attunement to feeling and calming feeling. Then we become attuned to mind, awareness itself. And out of that, naturally, the fourth foundation of insight arises, because through that attunement, our perception of reality is altered. We can't cling to an idea of self because it's completely impermanent. And of course, this is exactly how the Buddha framed this argument that things that are constantly changing can't be pointed to as self. They are unsatisfactory, and there is no stability to them that we can call a self. In the process of recovery, we can also see this, and the way this is, this is called a spiritual awakening in the 12 steps. The 12-step world, interestingly, uses as a foundation principle the idea of anonymity, which is a not self. There is we're not identifying the spiritual foundation of all our principles is anonymity, that we're not clinging to an identity or a self. And just to step back for a moment, and then I'll open it up. This is a description of a process. And just to be clear that for most of us, most of the time, we're not attuned on this level. This is why we practice meditation. So in our ordinary lives, we are naturally caught up in activities and behaviors that attachment happens, clinging happens, dukkha happens, suffering happens. We most of the time forget that this idea of self as a creation. So we use these principles, these teachings as guiding principles, and as reference points. We take refuge in these ideas, and we try to train ourselves to have this shift in consciousness that allows us to perceive the world through this lens of wisdom, through this lens of insight. But it's important that we don't create more suffering in those moments when we come up short, that we don't say, oh, I blew it, I'm not enlightened enough, I'm not, I don't have enough insight, I wasn't mindful in that moment. That's the natural human condition that we are working to let go of. I don't know if I want to say to overcome, but we could say that, I suppose. But just to see that coming up short of that, of insight or enlightenment, is just natural. And so we work with our own abilities, our own capacities to the best of our ability, and then we let go of the results, as we say. So I hope these have been helpful ideas, and so thank you for your kind attention, and I will let people chime in if there's any questions or comments.
Thank you, Kevin, and thanks for the teaching. It was, it was amazing, the wisdom in there.
Oh, well, I want to be gentle with myself, but if I'm too gentle with myself, then I'm binging. Next thing I know, I'm binging. So you can see that I don't have the answers. Well,
thank you, Kevin. I'm aware of the time.
yeah.
So could we start little by little wrapping up?
We could.
Because I would love to have you here for another hour, but I know that we have kind of like time limit.
Let me just say,
Yeah.
so that I am available in other places, and so my website is kevingriffin.net. I have a Tuesday morning class at the same time as this, that you can access through my website. I'm also doing a class this month for San Francisco Dharma Collective that is hybrid, so it's on Zoom. It's on Thursdays, the next 3 Thursdays at 7 p.m. So just, yeah, come and find me other places, as well as coming to my live events, please. Yeah. Yeah.
Okay,
Right.
good night, good day,
Okay.
whatever, where you are.
Good moment.
Be well.
Yes.
Thank you.
All right.
Bye-bye.
Take care. Bye.
Mm.